you only have a couple months left, and when that's gone, that's it. You're never going to get that time back. So this is a journal actually which I wanted to share. It is a very vulnerable space for me, but I think I'm glad to share some parts of it from the beginning. The earlier entries are a lot more new and raw, so I think I'll share the earlier entry. This one is at the end of September, so I wrote, oh gosh, I said, as September comes to its inevitable end, I can't help but reflect on all my time in the States so far. Tomorrow will mark 2 whole months of being in the United States of America, and it's gone fast. At this point, things are starting to fit in and fall into their respective places like a jigsaw. Routines, friendships, acquaintances, and academic/social life balance has become established. I can only look forward to what's to come. October last year, you were good to me. You lit up my whole year. This year, I'm begging you to do the same. I know it will be within the blink of an eye that I'll be looking back to October 23. So I say, bring it on. Oh my gosh, I forgot to put an entry for 1st of October.
You were so excited, you didn't.
October's my birthday month as well, which is why it's always a lot more fun. Last year it was good because it was my birthday month and I passed my driving and it was super fun, man. So I feel like October generally was more of an emotional whirlwind because so much was changing. And I think that's when for the first time I realised how much, like, as much as I think, oh, I'm in control of like the future and like what's to happen, I can plan things in my schedule, that's when I realised that how uncertain things are, because everything sort of changed after October 7th. And I think being Muslim, that shifted a lot of things about me because of course, you know, being in England, I feel like generally, especially being in Cambridge, there's a lot more Muslims. So I never really dealt with much Islamophobia, but that was something which I was super worried and concerned about as soon as it came to end of October, because there was a lot more protests and I kind of felt like I at some point didn't even want to like leave the house. I didn't want to go to classrooms. I'm so lucky to be here in San Francisco where it's generally a lot more liberal. October. So I almost felt this addressing October because I almost felt like October was to blame for it and for the way I was feeling. But I sort of wrote, you were unforgiving and you were enlightening. You grasped the entire world and turned it upside down and shook it. In October I learnt the true meaning of resistance and strength and endurance. October 7th sort of marked that day of absolute carnage and apocalyptic, that's sort of what it seemed like, some like photos and videos of burning worlds flooded my entire phone day and night. Thousands and thousands of innocent souls have departed, making the route from Gaza to Jannah, which is what we call heaven, very crowded. And then I think like this is, you know, of course, like where it does get really emotional, especially because being here alone, I kind of felt like I didn't know how to face it, because it was like a reality check. As I mourn the lost lives and the temporal scope of this world, it opens my eyes to prepare myself for the next. I feel like this was a month that I needed spiritually to find my connection back with God again as I detach from this world. It's sort of like I get I'm very vulnerable at this part, and I sort of think nothing in this world matters anymore because all I started to focus on was the next world and the next life. Because the way I saw it with all the martyrs, and I thought they have like nothing here, and all they have and all they practice on is their faith. There was like videos and things where people were just in the most horrible situations, but all they were focusing on is God. And that's sort of what I was then thinking of. Like, I sort of now think that as I say bye to each month, I will happily say bye, because that's bringing me closer to my final destination and going back to my creator. Moving on, we have November. November was very crammed. I had a lot going on because I knew that was my last month before December where I'd go back home, so I kind of wanted to make the most of it and do a lot more things. It was busy. I had so many things going on. I saw one of my friends who actually, she's a quite special friend to me because I would never have come here if it wasn't for her, because she told me about the whole study abroad scheme, and she ended up in Miami and I went to visit her because I think at that point it just felt right to meet someone familiar, someone who's also Muslim, someone who sort of aligns with me in a lot of ways, someone who just felt a bit like home. And so I went to visit her in Miami in the middle of November, And that was really, really nice because I spent like some time with her and it just felt like we were back in Norwich, apart from the weather was a lot better. And I think that was just the highlight of November, definitely. I wasn't always sure if I wanted to go back home and go to England for the Christmas break, but I think I was convinced when I always spoke to my little cousins on the phone, and they would always ask me, when are you coming back, when are you coming back? And one of my cousins, his birthday's in December, and he was like, will you be back for my birthday? And I think that's when I just thought, I owe it to him, I have to go back. I wasn't there for long, I was only there for 13 days. So I came back home on the 30th, and that was really sad because in my family, we have a huge family. So I'm the eldest out of all of my cousins. My mum is the eldest out of all her siblings. Then she has 5 sisters and 2 brothers. They all have their own children. So when it's a time like Christmas holidays, where everyone has time off work and we're all together, there's at least 30 people in the house at one given moment because we all go to my grandmother's house. There's so many of us. And when I came back home here to San Francisco, it was so lonely. It was really, really lonely, and I just missed everyone so much more because I came alone. At least when I came at the start, I came with family, but I was just alone, and I dreaded the taxi ride from my house. And I still remember like my mum's face, like she didn't even want to show her face because it was really sad. And especially with everything, you know, going on in October, it kind of made me think like nothing is guaranteed and how to value family like so much more. And I think that made me so much more emotional, just the final like goodbye. One of my best friends actually, she came and visited me in December, so just before Christmas, and that was probably like the highlight in the whole of December aside from going home. It was really, really nice. We just spent so much time together, and I think generally she had quite strict parents, so she never really travelled that much. So coming to San Francisco, I almost felt like I was introducing her to like my second home. So 2024 and that's basically January. Did I write an entry for January? I'm pretty sure I did. Now coming to February, the beginning of second semester, and it's just like that, January is gone. It was a wave with both long and short oscillation, so like I kind of didn't see it as being linear. I think January was, I had my highs, I had my lows. The countdown begins now. How many months until I go back, and how many months until I'm 22, how many months until I start third year. January was the biggest month of uncertainty for me. Aside from LA being the highlight, because I went to LA, that was amazing, I still have so much to figure out and so many decisions to make. Okay, so this actually was, I'm quite glad that I came to this part actually, because I had a lot of things, like a lot of uncertainties, a lot of things to figure out, that I thought I'm gonna just put my trust in the universe, I'm sure everything will figure itself out. And I know that if I write down all the things I'm like questioning or worried about at the moment, I will look back and think, well, the universe had a way to figure that out. And now thinking back to this, because I forgot that I wrote all this, I can actually quite proudly say that I've figured out pretty much like 90% of the things there that I was worried about. And a lot of it was like it just passively came to me in a way because I didn't overstress about it. But that's pretty much everything summed up. I hope that gives like a good summary on like really the emotional roller coaster that it was, because I can sit back and say it was brilliant, but when you really get into this, even that's when I remember like, oh wow, I really felt like that. And I think that's when it sort of unravels a lot of things. It wasn't just an academic experience, it wasn't just the journey of learning more about psychology, it was learning so much more about me, myself, being Muslim. It was about learning so much more about other people. It was about learning so much more about things like colonialism, learning so much more about people who don't have a voice.
You've learned a lot about yourself and like character development, and you know that's all that you want like growing up. So that's awesome.
Definitely.
Can I ask one question? If there was something that you could tell yourself like when you first decided to move, if there's anything that you've learned now that you could tell yourself then, is there anything you would say?
That any advice I would give?
Yeah, or anything.
That's a good one. I think that's a good one actually. I would perhaps say let the universe do its thing. That is something which has made me so much more secure in myself and in the way I navigate myself like in the world. And I think that's something I would tell myself, because that links into not worrying. I honestly think the more you are open to things, and even if something doesn't go your way, then you have to openly accept that as the universe redirecting you. And I think that's something I would have told myself in the past, so that way I wouldn't have worried so much about things. Like, for example, when I first applied and I got in, I actually got into University of Wyoming when I first got my allocation, and it was super frustrating because that wasn't particularly where I wanted to go. And then in that moment I thought, well, I suppose my study abroad year isn't going to happen, and it was quite upsetting because I was so looking forward to it. But then again, I think the way it all turned out, because I sort of uplifted myself a bit about it and I thought maybe the universe has better plans, that's what I told myself, that is what happened, because that's how I ended up here. And I think after travelling and going to other states, I have really found a soft spot for San Francisco, and I think it couldn't have worked out any better.
I think that's such like a good perspective to look at life like that, especially like as we're growing up. Just not to worry and like overthink.
This is a huge thing that I've also learned, is how everyone is like a door, but like to different opportunities, and everyone is so different that they have so much to teach you about their self and about yourself. And I think coming here, that was, if I have learned anything, that's the biggest thing I've learned, and that has made me really want to nurture and value human relationships so much more, that actually for my like 3rd year psychology thesis paper, when I go back to England, this is what I want to focus on, like human relationships and like our own upbringing and our own journeys and what we can learn from other people's, because that is essentially how we grow. And I think that is something which I've really learnt to value.
No, I love that. I couldn't agree more, honestly. That's awesome. A great perspective on life. I love that.
I think just dealing with myself meant I had to deal with my thoughts, and that was quite a challenge for me. And I think what I really tried to do from the beginning was find an outlet somewhere, so like a vulnerable space to let my thoughts out onto. And this is something which I've been doing for a while, but I specifically wanted to dedicate a space for that for this year alone, because I knew this year would be like no other year. And I think I really found that in journaling.
You know, I loved everything that you said. I think for not only like people that want to study abroad, it's inspirational, but like for people just like me, like everything that you were saying, I think can hit home to someone, like growing up, especially like at the age we are right now.
Yeah, thank you.
Of course. I think this is great.
Bye to the camera. Do you want to say bye to the camera?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that you found my story somewhat interesting. Bye.